And Michael Queel from the Department of Environment and Water. Welcome. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So we have a few elected members here. We have an apology from Helen Hennessy. She has a family event, so she won't be attending. I haven't any other apologies. No, we don't need that. I extend a warm welcome to staff. We've got lots of planning staff here this evening, taking notes. Wonder why that is, Andrew. Are you the head of planning? It's a planning issue. I'd like to welcome especially staff of Heritage South Australia. Are you from Heritage South Australia? Right. Oh, sorry, I didn't get that right. I thought you were from Dew. Yeah. Who have authored the draft heritage standard for the Churchill area. When the Churchill area was, it became a state heritage area, it's right and proper that it is a state heritage area. It's one of the, we have been told that it's the jewel in the crown from the 19th century. It's not funny. That's not funny. I don't find that funny. It's highly valued. The people that live in Churchill highly value their role in making sure their properties are up to scratch, and they follow the original Churchill management plan. We will go through this document and I'll highlight some things that are missing, and I'll advise where you can find those missing bits. The Churchill and the old part of Gawler was designed by Colonel Light as part of Light, Finnis and Co development in 1839. The community highly values Churchill's distinctive and intact character, which is a testament to the status of Gawler as South Australia's first country town and the influence of Colonel William Light. It was the only other area that it follows a grid pattern. It also has parklands along the river corridors. We highly value our cultural heritage. We believe in heritage preservation, and to this end is supporting of developing guidelines, incentives and projects together with state government. So I'd like to thank you for, we've been advocating to get standards for Churchill for quite some time, and I'd like to thank you for a beginning document such as the one we have in front of us tonight. Tonight's briefing session is an opportunity for Council to consider the draft Gawler Churchill's Heritage Standard and to pose questions to the authors of the document, which these three people are. Members have been provided with a memo outlining the structure of the standard and some areas of interest that may assist. Where's the memo?
Sorry, which memo? We haven't got the memo yet.
You haven't. Members have been provided with a memo. No? No, we haven't been provided with a memo.
We've provided previous briefings that we have in this meeting, not memos.
Well, it says here, it says here, members have been provided with a memo, and we have not been provided with a memo.
Not correct, sorry. No, we haven't prepared a briefing or memo at this point in time yet. It was here tonight.
Okay. So we have not received a memo. Members of the Council may discuss matters relating to the draft standard and pose questions of Heritage SA staff. However, I wish to advise that the question and answer session is not open to public participation. A separate consultation opportunity for the public to meet with Heritage SA staff is scheduled for the 27th of November, 2 to 4 and 6 to 8. Those interested in attending must, however, visit the Your Say website and book in a session time. Oh, really? Why? Can't we just turn up? Why can't we turn up?
Through the chair, I'm certainly happy for the due staff
I
to
think people will
speak to
just
it.
turn up.
I think the desire, and Ju might wish to, the staff may wish to speak to this, but ultimately to provide proper one-on-one answers to questions, it was felt best to have some scheduling because there's several sessions and opportunities throughout the day, and I'm not sure whether 3 or 4 staff will be there, but that's the approach you've taken elsewhere.
Look, to be honest, I think people will just turn up. If we put too many rules around what people need to do, they're not going to turn up. You're not going to get the feedback. So I think we should allow people to turn up. I don't think they have to go to the Your Say website and book in a session time in advance. Yes, yes. What do you...
I agree. Norma, for example, had a project recently where people were bringing their kitchen, their household linen, and people had to book in a time, and a lot of people just said, "I'm not going to book in."
Yeah, they won't turn up.
Yeah,
I think
people just said, "I'm not going to." Just too hard, so they just didn't bother.
Well, I think people should just be allowed to turn up, and if they've got questions, maybe we can arrange some way of coordinating those questions.
We'll have staff there
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. So if people have got questions, they could write them down and submit them. Maybe we could do that. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't realise that was happening. So, briefing by Michael Quill, Principal Heritage Architect, Heritage South Australia, and Michael's with us this evening, and Kirsty and Susan are also with us this evening. Discussion of the draft heritage standard with Heritage SA, South Australia staff. Okay, so I'm going to hand over. Who's running the session?
Well, effectively, it's a chance for the team to talk about it.
Okay.
One page to the next, or page turner, Q&A as we go. If that's the way you want to do it. So we can just sit up at the table if you like, where the spare seats are. That might be the easiest.
Yeah.
It's relatively informal.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just come up. If you'd like to come up and sit down, wherever you'd like to sit, in these chairs, just take those. I won't call you Councillor Hennessy, and I won't call you Councillor Solomon either. Yeah. That way, you've got your. You just need to turn this on, and you want to start, Michael? Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to meet here tonight and discuss the draft heritage standard, and we also want to give you a bit of an update of where it sits relative to other work we are doing with other heritage standards and the consultation process, which you've already partly discussed. So as you're aware, just to give you an idea of who's done what on the standard, I'm the project lead on the Heritage Standard. Kirsty Neal is, of course, at the end there, Heritage Advisor to this part of South Australia.
Yeah.
And some of you have met her already. And Susan Avey was the author of the document itself. It's one of 17. We have 17 state heritage areas. And at the moment we have one fully active heritage standard in Colonel Light Gardens you may have come across.
Yeah.
2021, it was a good COVID project at the time. And so we have also 4 drafts that are already complete for other state heritage areas. And this one, of course, is at consultation now. So we're just shy of halfway through our program. And the remainder will be done in the next 12 months. That's our project aim.
Yeah.
So what is a heritage standard? To give you some background. They have been prepared. Why did we write them? What was wrong with the old guidelines for development, which Churchill had one of those. They were updated mainly to reflect the structure and the language of the Planning Design Code, which of course came in 2020 onwards, for consistency and to perhaps take some of the confusion out of the system for people that live in the areas. It replaces that earlier guidelines for development document, which some of that was a bit dated, pages of detail about solar panels, things like that. Things move on, and also incorporates the 1998 plan for Churchill, or the core of those two documents. It is primarily, the standard is primarily a tool for Heritage South Australia officers to use as the basis of all advice in relation to development application referrals under the Act and Code, as per the wording and desired outcome under the State Heritage Area Overlay in the Code. It's a document prepared and published by our department. One of the main principles was to write a document that if we ended up having to defend something in court, we've got a sound basis for our decisions. Because some people have said it's a very subjective process, it always is. But we'd like to think we've got some fairly rational arguments against it now. It can, of course, be used by planning staff as well as a guide. And we have met with your planning staff a week and a half ago, I think, to have an early briefing discussion as well.
Yeah. In the plan, it says that there's no original Light, Finnis and Co plan, but we have one.
Excellent.
We've got one.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is one in existence.
Right.
We have one here.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got close, but we were obviously keen to find the original.
Planners might not be aware of it, but we do have one.
So that's in the local history collection?
Yes, it
Excellent.
is. Yeah, it is.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course the standard can be used by residents too, and we want them to use it as a guide and an understanding of expectations of heritage value. The standard is in 3 parts. It's in a structure that we're producing for each of the heritage standards for consistency. The history is a summary history. It is not a detailed history because it's not meant to be the resource in that sense. We also include a section on Indigenous history, but we don't profess to having great knowledge in that area. Council's given us a contact to talk to locally in the Ghana Corporation to see if we can flesh that out a little bit and get some ownership of that because it's not our history. The statement of significance, of course, is repeated in here. Every state heritage area has a statement of significance. Some of them over the years are probably tighter than others. And it's hence why in the second section we have an area called Features of Heritage Value to flesh that statement out more and to illustrate the parts of the area that tell the significant story and to try and put a date range on the values of the area from the point of view of the statement of significance, which then means if someone's got a for example, 70s house, the policy will be different in the way that, yes, they may be able to demolish that because that doesn't necessarily contribute to significance, unlike other parts of the area. The standards themselves are the third part, of course. They're the principles that we've written, which are like the ideals for heritage value retention, and the acceptable standards in the other side of that column are minimum approaches. Descriptive enough, but also open enough to allow for alternative solutions. Ultimately, this will be online in the same way the Colonel Light Gardens one has already been online, and progressively our website will look a lot different as more of these get loaded. And we also hope for, we know we will get some links through Plus as well to take people straight to our website, but it will live on ours because it's our document under Heritage Places Act sort of consultation plan at the moment. As we've said, Your Say's active, and that's a standard state government approach to consultation. Kind of like Gardens, we had lots and lots and lots, but that was a few years ago. The last 4 state heritage area heritage standards in Your Say, we might have had 10, 15 comments per area. Mostly supportive, which is good.
You'll probably get a few more here.
That's fine. And then after we collect those, and we're really trying to squeeze as many days out of it, so it's a 6-week program for that.
Yes.
We will then obviously prepare early in the new year what we have heard report and then address any of those issues. So it's not a collect some comments and put them to one side. That's not part of our processes. We did mention the drop-in sessions, and yes, other people in other areas have just turned up, and that's been okay.
Okay.
It's just making some time for people so they feel comfortable that they don't have to race out the door, and we have picked the afternoon and the evening, so it captures people that are working during the daytime as well. And we haven't checked those bookings yet. We were just talking about that on the way up to see if we've had any bites yet.
Yeah.
We've certainly, obviously, as I said, we've met with council staff under consultation and yourselves giving you a briefing tonight. There's some flyers floating around. We prepared some, and I think council staff have offered to send them around, and council also generously offered to do a mail out to residents, which we're grateful for. It's not too scary a one either, because the area is not massive, which helps that more direct contact.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So after consultation, just to give you an idea of that process before we talk about anything in the standard, as I said, January we'll consolidate those comments and update the standard to reflect anything that is a valid update, with the aim of end of first quarter 2024 making it published and live, and then that will technically replace the guidelines for development as our go-to document for advice and assessment of impact in terms of DAs on heritage value. So that's a short rundown of the consultation and the approach.
Paul, I might go to questions. You got a question? Yes?
You said there's principles, accepted standards, and then you said there might be negotiations.
Do you want to use your, use your,
Sure.
Accepted standards, and then you said there may be negotiation too.
I guess by saying that the accepted standards are obviously a best fit solution, we don't expect everyone to produce a carport exactly the same.
It's just that
Yes.
when I look at principle 313, materials, finishes and colours, it says there that...
where are you? 313?
Yeah, page 21. Those common to,
Oh, yeah.
to the era of heritage value and heritage value and state heritage area. But then when I go to, where is it? 3.43, it talks about colour bond and metal sheeting. I wouldn't have thought that was compatible with the era of, so I think I feel a bit, you've got one statement there, materials, finishes and colours, and then down the track you're saying, well, you can have colour bond, but colour bond I don't think fits with the era.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
No,
so
and
it's a bit of
Colour bond and Zinc-A-Lume do not fit with state heritage areas. Yeah.
Sure.
being a bit more, flexible and negotiating to something, but then pressure, and you say, oh, well, I want to do this, blah, 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 and we water it down for that particular case, then you have a precedent and just...
Well, I think what's a strength in the document is that there is comment made around corrugated iron, and corrugated iron, but it shouldn't be colour bond or Zinc-A-Lume. Because one of the issues when they actually were assessing for state heritage, King Street was excluded from Churchill based on the new footpaths that were put in. They were cement footpaths, and it was excluded. It was completely excluded based on that. And I think that was a bit of a shame, because King Street's actually quite a beautiful street.
No, it does. It typifies that area.
Yeah, but they excluded it because of the footpaths. They did. And so we need to be really careful what is in here, so that people, if people see that they can put colour bond up and they can put Zinc-A-Lume up, I think it'll detract from the area. Well, there weren't, but there were. I don't know if there weren't carports either. There weren't carports. We didn't have carports because we didn't have cars. So we had horse and dray, and we had barns. So and we had horses parked in the barns. So we have to have some flexibility, but I think.
But this is talking about finishes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think the colour bond and you know, we need to be quite strict on what goes in this document. And I think feedback is really useful for these three people, and I think they'll take that on board.
The other question is, are these standards across all the other heritage areas? Is this just
It's just Churchill.
okay, this is unique to Churchill?
Yes,
so
yeah.
Yeah.
all the other
The structure is very similar, but obviously the history, the heritage features are tuned to
Yeah.
Churchill only.
Right, yeah.
And some of the approach to additions, alterations, shed sizes, that sort of thing is specific to here.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so the principles are the same, but
Yes.
except for the standards might be
Yeah.
Yeah. And customised to the state heritage area, because obviously you're different to Beltana or to Gore, or you know,
Yeah.
and that's why they're all unique heritage areas. Yes.
Yeah. No, it is a beautiful area.
Mm.
It is. It's lovely.
It's a bit concerned when you've got the new code and it just seems to overlay everything and it takes away the personality.
So one of the genesis of this idea was to try and, as the code was being developed, was trying to actually customise the state heritage areas, because we were losing all that planning policy specific to an area. So
We
this-
did.
yeah, so this is sort of I won't say backdoor way, but a way that allowed us to actually infuse a lot more control.
And you will have to use the standards, won't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
will. So I might go to David Belatovic. How will you use the standards? How will you use them in developing, in a development application that might come out of Churchill?
Through the Mayor, so normally, in most cases, people in the state area come to see council first.
Yes.
So council staff will have some preliminary discussions with the applicant. Obviously, we'll go through the code and the standard. But when the application is actually lodged, the applications are referred to the State Heritage Branch for direction.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
State Heritage will have the final say.
They'll have the final say, but you will use the standards?
Yes,
Will you use the standards?
as a guide, yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will make it clear that the planning team are not heritage
No.
architects, so
I accept
yep.
that.
Yep.
No, I understand that. And I know that you have to refer it through to you guys. However, you will use the standards as a guide?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So does that help, Cody?
Yeah, I had a question about the area that is in the state heritage area. I guess in terms of whether that, because is this the same official state heritage area as it was in 1985 when they did it?
Yeah.
And I guess because is there, I don't know, is there room for it to be?
We can only have one. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I'll let Cody finish and then I'll go to you. Okay,
Yeah.
Michael? Sorry,
yeah.
it's just a limitation of the microphones.
I'm just curious because there are areas that, I don't know, were there but are clearly not, you know, it goes down Queen Street but it sort of cuts out Jerningham there and that sort of thing. I'm just curious about all of that.
Yep, sorry, Michael. There you go.
There we go. Good question, because that's how we started this project, to try and understand in all 17 what was the basis of the boundaries. And we dug through all the records and we found all the heritage authorities' sign-offs for every state heritage area with no reason why. Nothing clear, unfortunately, because yes, some of the boundaries, and you're not the only area, the boundaries you think, why did it not go there, or what's going on? Because technically, if you're really trying to capture the Light Finnis and Co plan for this area, it probably should go to the rivers.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't capture the
No, it didn't capture the entire...
parkland or the
Yeah.
whole escarpment, you know,
Yes,
and then does it go
yeah.
down Murray Street, because that was all part of it, which
Yeah, that's
probably
right.
is probably less of an
Well,
argument.
that was supposed to be the main street. That was supposed to be the main street. And I can understand why, because Murray Street's sort of level with the river and this Cowan Street's right up high. I get it, but it didn't end up being that way because the bullet trains all went through Murray Street.
Right. And we have made that call that at the moment we're leaving boundaries where they are, because we've also had legal advice that we can't guess what others were thinking, and so we have to work with what we've got. Hence why we built the sort of key heritage features part into the standard to try and stretch that a bit and explain it better, because a lot of the statements of significance are particularly underwhelming in their detail. You know, we sort of all, we get why it's Churchill area, that's easy, but it doesn't really explain it clearly, especially to someone who's just turned up to the area and wants to understand a lot more about why it's of value.
Well, there's three squares. There's Light Square, Oleana Square and Parnell Square. And Parnell Square, that's where Parnell Street is. That was a square. And we don't really know why it was called Parnell. We've never really been able to find out why. However, Oleana and Light, I beg your pardon?
The Parnell family lived up that street, that's what was named after.
Yeah, but that was after Light named Parnell Square. Yeah, that was probably after. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for that information, Brian. So that's the Churchill area, as you can see up on the screen. Ethan?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question to Michael and team. First of all, thank you for coming out to present to us tonight. Much appreciated. I guess in your work developing this document, you've taken the existing guidelines and, you know, I understand that you had to, I guess there's been changes in the Planning Act, obviously that's been a big driver, but I guess what else, are you able to, I guess, give us a bit of a rundown or summary of any key changes, or is most of the standards sort of what the existing ones are, or is there, I guess, anything that you've done throughout your work that you've gone, this is a serious part that needed to be updated?
Thanks, Ethan. That's a great question, and it's a bit of a sort of curly one, really. The guidelines, the previous guidelines for Gawler Churchill are a fantastically comprehensive document. What we needed to do was to bring that into so that it will fit with all of the other standards that we're writing. So I would hope that we've distilled all of the information from there and changed what has changed over time, but everything that is important in that document, I hope, has been brought over into the new standard. And as Michael said before, I think, you know, things change over time. That document is a 90s document and this is a, 2020s document. So there are things like, the solar panels and all of those sorts of things which have had to change. So does that answer your question, or did you want anything specific?
I guess that's, so reading through the existing document, it is comprehensive, but it is obviously was written 30 years ago, and looking through this, and while I haven't sat them down side by side yet, I guess I just wanted to get the impression of, fundamentally, correct me if I'm wrong, nothing extreme or, the fundamental side is being changed. In principle, everything's being translated over. We're not now saying in the new standards that people could demolish their 150-year-old front walls, but I guess it's really just about bringing this into the modern day context. And of course, you guys are doing work on a broader sense, so that's probably something we need to understand too, that this forms part of a bigger picture, a statewide picture with the other state heritage areas. So am I right in saying that that's kind of the principle behind?
It's still specific to Churchill because there's nuances that are different. Like Colonel Light Gardens, it's a garden.
Yep.
It was done by who was the architect that did Colonel Light Gardens? Yeah, Charles Reed. So we go back further than Colonel Light Gardens. It was done in the 19th century, 1839. So it's a very different kind of nuanced. So it has to be specific to the area that they're doing it in. And we did have a very good document, the Churchill Management Plan, and which held its own for many, many years. And I think people are still quite attached to that Churchill document because it did have extensive public consultation, and it was a particularly good document. So, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. I've seen that document. I've got it at home, and yeah, it's a very, very good document. So if this is going to replace that document, and it needs to be brought up, and solar panels are a really good, really good understanding, because you can't have them at the front. You've sort of got to have them at the back. You don't want to challenge the character of the place, but yeah, and when you've got only a small property, you need to design those solar arrays very, very carefully, and they need to be at the back, not at the front. And I'm really pleased to see that in the document.
The other thing, Vincent, is that the language in the document is a little bit more formal, possibly a little bit more strident in you can and will, rather than perhaps the language in the older document is a little bit more...
Yeah. May.
A little bit softer.
Yeah, yeah.
Kinder to the reader, but we've done that because we've learned from past experience that we want to make this accessible to everybody and readable, but we also need it to be defendable. And so we can't have any ambiguity.
No.
With, oh, but it says may, so, that's not really an
No.
instruction. So it is quite formal in its
And it will help our planning staff as well when they're using the document, to be able to defend, like you say, defend the document, and you can't have ambiguity. No, I agree with that. Cody?
In terms of differences between planning in the 90s and today, are there any differences in relation to like disability access and that kind of thing? Because I know that's been a point of contention about, ramps and all those sorts of things.
Yes, thank you. It certainly, we insist on access, equitable access wherever possible. There are parts of the Act that now allow some, not concession, but alternative solutions if you can find the right building certifier to sign them off. Councils are quite good at that because you've got your own insurance, whereas most private certifiers get a bit scared with that because they just can't afford the risk of something going wrong. I think that's more Kirsty's work on the ground often to help people solve access problems, and often we find it wasn't the solution anyone thought it would be, but it's actually quite a simple way around, and it may or may not impact on heritage value at all. Other things, this document, maybe just to add to the earlier question with Ethan as well, that probably take on board more than the earlier documents, public realm. This became a big issue which we hadn't really considered when we started Colonel Light Gardens. So it does draw council and council management of that area into the standard because that's all part of the heritage character of the state heritage area. Then we get on grey area because sometimes it's not development. And I'm sure yourselves are very good at that definition, but some councils may argue that changing a curb over is not development, but when they do 50 metres of it randomly around an area, it suddenly changes the whole character.
Yeah.
So we have kept that a little bit open because we're not infrastructure experts and those things change over time, but it basically says talk to us from a council point of view.
Yeah.
The other big change in the last 2 or 3 years has been outbuildings, of course. The Home Office, which when we started with Colonel Light Gardens, we had a 40 square metre outbuilding maximum. And we were being faced with DAs very quickly with people that wanted more because they've already got their 40 square metre garage and wanted their granny flat or their home office. So things like that, it changes over time. You've got to
So it still has to fit into the character of the area though, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And so we'd be, and it's out for consultation. We put a figure in again for this one. We'd love to get a feel for, is that right, is that wrong, what's the mood in the area.
Yeah.
The planning staff can certainly help there because they've been processing those applications over time.
Yeah. Did you have your hand up, Mick? No? Okay. Ethan?
Thanks, Mayor. Just finishing off my question earlier. Yeah, I understand that Churchill is unique, and I guess what I was referring to is that this forms part of a bigger standard or template, for lack of a better word, that's on a statewide level. And I guess something we also need to remember is that we're lucky enough to have Churchill as a state heritage area. That also means that we need to listen to the advice of these experts in front of us. And also understand that it is of state significance. So while it is Gawler, the town of Gawler's, the trade-off for a state heritage area is that it falls under state heritage. We need to listen to their advice.
Well, not complete, they need to listen to the feedback from the community as well.
Of course, and they do that extremely well, I can guarantee that. I've seen some of their work that they've done with other consultations, and I guess what I just really want to reiterate is our job in this is to actually stand side by side and say to the community that fundamentally nothing's changing, but we also understand that with changes to policies, especially within Churchill, which is such a jewel in the crown for Gawler, that we understand that people may have certain stress or anxieties around that. You know, I think we also need to acknowledge that too. So it does play a role for us as well as our friends over in Jew to actually explain to the community that yes, there are changes, but also, you know, where nothing drastic is changing. Have a read through, have a read of the comparison, come along and listen to these experts and hear what they have to say. So
it's a two-way street.
Yeah,
it's a two-way
exactly.
street.
Yes, and the community for both parties is the most important. So I guess, sorry, wrapping around a little bit to my question is, are you, obviously this is a newer sort of development that you guys have embarked on in recent years. Can you, I guess feedback, what did you find if we look at your previous consultations? So am I correct to say there's just one that's currently active, which is Colonel Light Gardens? Is it? Yeah. So what, I guess, the end result of that, so just so we kind of, I guess, know what to expect. I know it's only been through one, but I guess could you, community feedback, lessons learned, and then I guess how you applied that community feedback. Maybe if you just able to share a few examples, so I guess we kind of know what to expect, more or less.
I was going to say in response to your previous question, which Susan answered beautifully, but the difference between the previous guidelines and this has been as a result of the constant questions and requests that we get as we approve and give feedback on development applications to basically evolve so it's current today, because things that were being asked and requested for in the 90s is different to now, and the Home Office is a good example. Shipping containers, people always want a shipping container in their backyard.
You're not going to have shipping containers up in Churchill, surely.
But it's a common, it's a common question or request that we might get. So this sort of new addition is in response already to feedback that we get just through our normal jobs. So I think that's sort of one of the big differences. So I don't know if that helps answer your question. Yeah. To today's and what people want today. Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful that the community will provide some feedback, and I'd really like to think that you listen to that feedback, because it is a two-way street. People in Churchill value very highly where they live, and they've upgraded their properties based on the Churchill Management Plan, and they will continue to do that based on the standards. So they love living there, and they're highly proud of their properties, and they highly value them, and they don't like change very much. However, it is incumbent on council to bring them along the journey. However, we need to understand why that Churchill area became a state heritage area, and the nuances around those elements of 19th century architecture. It is a beautiful area. We've got some beautiful churches in that area. One's not being used at the moment. The Catholic Church is being used at the moment. That's a beautiful, beautiful church. And there's convents that are undergoing change, and schools that are undergoing change. Yeah, so it's a very, very historical area, and I think if people thought they could do whatever they liked to their properties, I think that would be a shame, and I'm really glad that we're getting some standards. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? What about staff? What have you got? Have you got questions? Oh, you've got a question. Paul, yes.
So we're getting the standards updated now. When will that be reviewed? How often will this be reviewed? Because things do change. For example, solar panels. What happens if people want to get little wind turbines? You know, stuff like that. What's the...
Michael?
Yes, good question, because we have already talked about that in relation to Coonerlike Gardens. There's a few things we've already identified that may need a slight tweaking. I guess we took the priority that we just want to get these out first. So probably as we get to the end of the rollout, we'll set up a policy for a review policy. And I think, we need it, absolutely. With any document, that's a sensible thing to do. Conservation management plans, you do the same thing with the building. It's just usually the money's not there for them to do that every few years. Yeah. Whereas this, at least, we can review, and we probably like to let them run for a bit of time too, to sort of iron out the issues. There's always something we forget, you know, and you go, the one example that someone wants to do on their property that you'd never, envisaged at the time. Yeah. So it's in the pipeline.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor Karen, maybe to Michael, or it could be to Ashraf, but there's a big advert in our local paper today about this, the meeting and that is coming up. Are all the householders or owners of the property in this area, are they all sent personal information, or is that not necessary?
I'll go to David. David might be able to answer that question for you, Brian.
Yes, through the chair. So staff have sent out the flyer to all owners and occupiers of the Churchill area. So it's people that rent in the dwellings, and also people that own the dwellings.
Yeah, so they all got a flyer, Brian. I think that's really quite useful, isn't it? And last week, it got sent out last week, so that hopefully we get some good feedback in the community sessions next Monday. Yes, yeah. So will you guys be there? Oh, you're coming as well? Thank you. Yes. Oh, I hope tonight's been quite useful for you. Has the questions been useful? Yes, you're all nodding your heads.
We've had this meeting the last 3 other councils. We didn't, no one was that interested, other than a couple of councillors that came with planning staff to talk. So we highly value Churchill, and it is a very good draw card from a tourism point of view. We've got a beautiful old town, and we highly value cultural heritage. It's a shame that we don't have the strength in the overlays through the design code. It's unfortunate, I think. However, our planning staff understand the value of cultural heritage in Gawler, and they're doing their best. Okay. Yes, Mick. Yes.
Obviously, I'm going to touch back on the solar panel side of things here, but not about the solar panels themselves. I understand we can put the inverters and batteries and everything out of the sites and that. So moving forward, a lot more homes becoming EV chargers and that sort of thing. What is your views upon that? We you want everything not from the street side, but you can't stick the EV charger out the back and then pick up your battery and take it around there and charge it, sort of thing. Your car's parked on the side.
Mick,
So
you're an expert in this area.
I would say an
You,
expert.
you
I'll tell a lot
are.
of people
You
what
are
to
an
do.
expert. You are an expert in this area. Are solar panels getting stronger? Are they getting better?
Absolutely, especially from Tindo Solar.
He works for Tindo
I'm the
Solar.
operations manager for Tindo Solar.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
he,
excellent.
he knows a lot about
Yeah.
solar panels.
So yeah, the solar, a lot of designs and that can be made, and particular use in Enphase and Solar Edge equipment and that. So having them on different faces out the back and that's not so much of a challenge for us. I guess it's the going forwards with the EV charger side of things. So a lot of the EV chargers are a bulky unit sort of thing, flashing lights, all that sort of good thing on there. Is there scope for people, or it's going to pretty much be no? Because, you know, you've got maybe a 5 metre lead to, I think 10 metres the maximum that you can get to. No, it's actually, no. The batteries and that, in the majority of the places, they can be put in an area that's not visible. Same as the inverter, there's more work to do with it.
It's EVSE, electric vehicle supply equipment, it's EVSE.
Yeah, the actual charger units themselves. So when people come home with their electric cars and they plug them in. Yes, yeah. So what you've got on the wall is essentially a box about yay big, which will have spinning lights on it, telling them it's going and all that sort of stuff. So it is just a thought that I had, and something you guys may take away to think of how we can get around this, because it is something developing that more people are going to want. But we'll go back to horse and cart and we're good. The restriction is the length of cable from that unit to plug into your actual vehicle. So I'm more or less on lines where the cars or the parks are alongside the home, where they're pulling off the street and parking next to the home, to be able to have a cable long enough to put that out of sight that they can drag around and plug into it is where the challenges are going to be. If they've got garages and that sort of thing, there is ways around it. It's all just cabling and using a bit out of the box thinking, which my company's very good at doing, so I'll just say that too. No, they can be freestanding, so that would obviously require trenching and cabling, and there is options. So if obviously on the fence line, and you need to put it on the other fence line, and you could make things around it, but I guess they have to have ventilation. Yes. Sorry. Yes, yeah, you could. So from the street, you could have, basically you've got a box about yay big sort of thing, and that can sit on, obviously near a fence or something, and you can have, you make something up to it so you don't see it as much. Yeah, so.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So it depends on where and the size and whatnot, but typically things like that in the state heritage area would require a DA. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. We were lucky enough to have a session previously with the staff from Heritage SA, and we did sort of start to thrash out some technical matters which we will present to Council at its next meeting.